Welcome to the Selling from the Heart podcast on the From the Heart Business Network. You've joined a global movement of sales professionals who are dedicated to being authentic and building trust. We call it Selling from the Heart. Together, we're on a mission to bring sincerity and substance to the sales profession we all love. Get ready to be inspired and equipped as we join our hosts, Larry Levine and Darrell Amy.
Hiring salespeople based on a resume or a great interview is like drafting players based on their Instagram highlights. They look amazing in the clips. That's until the real game starts.
Exactly. Every CEO's been there. The interviews go great. You think you're bringing a top performer onto your team, but once they hit the field, they can't close, won't prospect, and blame the leads.
That's exactly why we recommend Sales Index Unlimited Candidate Assessments. It's your sales recruiting engine that screens every candidate against 21 proven sales competencies, benchmarked against 2.5 million sales professionals worldwide. That is more than a personality profile. You'll know with confidence who can sell and who will actually do the work.
Because the best teams don't just fill positions, they build a bench. They're always scouting for great players who can perform under pressure.
For just $2.99 a month, you can build your own bench of ready-to-sell talent, coachable, driven, and proven before they ever get the jersey.
So stop guessing, start scouting like a pro.
Go to unlimited.salesindex.ai. That's unlimited.salesindex.ai and start building your next sales all-star team today. Welcome back to the Selling from the Heart podcast. Your co-host, Darrell Amy, here today with Larry Levine. What's going on, Larry?
We're plugging away here at Selling from the Heart. Darrell, great seeing you. We're in for a treat with our good friend, Dan. It's always great day when we get to podcast with really good people.
Why not? We're going to have a good time today. Get ready. Hey, thank you to everybody out there who is connecting with us. We love getting to know new faces and new friends here in the Selling from the Heart network. It's a great global network of sales professionals that say, hey, yeah, Selling from the Heart, I'm all in.
I just want to give a special shout out to Lisa McGuire. She's a listener. She reads the newsletter I put out every week. I've been on her podcast. Lisa, I really appreciate getting to know you. Thanks for being part of this community.
Hear, hear. Well, hey, today's guest believes that leadership isn't about titles. It's about the difference you make. Our friend Dan Dominguez is the founder and CEO of Why Not Leadership, a coaching and consulting firm built on one powerful idea. Leadership is measured by impact, not position. As a sought-after coach, speaker, and podcast host, Dan helps leaders and teams unlock their full potential by fostering real connection, cultivating self-awareness, and encouraging bold, values-driven action. His work challenges all of us to stop playing it safe and start leading in a way that's intentional, human, and purpose-filled. Dan, and he is here with us today. What's going on, Dan?
Hey, I am doing fantastic. I was saying hello to someone who dropped off a package for my CEO retreat this weekend. So I'm excited to finish up with you guys. You guys are my last podcast recording of the year, but you're also the day before we get together with four CEOs. We rented, I did it big, guys. I rented a big house in Albuquerque right alongside the Rio Grande River, beautiful basket property. And we're going to get together and we're going to review 2025, plan for 2026. It's a 28-hour retreat. You know, we're starting
Good
at
times.
noon tomorrow. We're going till 6 o'clock or 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock. I got to do the math. 4 o'clock makes it 28 hours on Saturday, and we're locked in. We're gonna watch some videos. We're gonna fill out our planners, and we're gonna evaluate, celebrate, and plan for 2026.
I love it. Great cadence. Probably talk about that cadence some more in just a minute. But Dan, as we get started, you're a repeat offender here on Selling from the Heart. So you understand the question that every guest answers. You're not going to get away today without letting us know, what does Selling from the Heart mean to you?
Well, and last time I was on, I wanted to make sure I said the exact same thing, but it really doesn't matter because I think selling from the heart means selling authentically, selling from who you are. And I think it means also wanting to make a difference for our clients. And you mentioned that in the introduction, and that's so congruent. And that's really a place that I want to be. I just had Lanier Johnston on. She's a LinkedIn expert from New Zealand. I had her on the podcast and she talked about the importance of congruence in our profile on LinkedIn. Also, that what we say on our profile matches our messaging, what we put in our messaging, and it also matches the posts that we put out. So you can't have a really fun, lively LinkedIn profile, and then your posts are all very serious. And then when you reach out to someone, you're a completely third different person. That congruence is so important to building trust. As Larry Levine would say, it's one of the most important things you can do, building trust, building a brand that's consistent. Congruency is so important. So for me, selling from the heart is being authentic, doing something that comes from you. For me, with my why being a contribute, I want to make sure everything I do comes from a place of giving back and making a difference.
Oh, hey, this is good, Dan. And I want to bring congruency in, but I also want to bring leadership in for just a second, because I know that's your lane that you really love driving in. Is what's a congruent leader look like, especially in today's world? What makes a congruent leader stand out above all others?
Yeah, you know what? I think congruent leaders are the same people regardless of where they are. And, that's something I've been leaning into recently. You can't say, I am this person on the weekend, but when I get to work, I'm different, right? And the person that you are to your team that you lead at work should be the same person that leads your team at home. We've had some recent opportunities for me to step up my coaching with my daughter at home and really step in and say, okay, what would I do if this was a client? And wow, would I do that or I would do this? Well, you know what? We should be the same leader at home that we are in front of our team. So congruency is important because it's not something you can shut out. I think what happens when you're congruent, then you don't have to worry about work-life balance. Guess what? Same person everywhere. And so you don't have to, oh, guys, tone it down. My wife is here, right? No, it's, hey, this is how we always behave. We don't use that kind of language, even when my wife isn't here. Let's be the same person at work that we are at home. Let's use the same values. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to, as I go into 2026, something stood out to me. There's a gentleman named Jeff Fishelbein that I've been working with, and he talks about an undivided life. And he says, look, for those of us that are of faith, are you the same person in the pew on Sunday that shows up to work on Monday? And it should be, right? And, when we look at that, the world, I did the, hey, thanks to Google, I'm really smart, right? 70% of the world believes in God. So that's the majority of the world believes in God. I happen to believe in Jesus Christ. So that's half of those people that believe in God believe in the same God that I do. And fully half of those people believe in Catholicism, which is the religion that I practice. But what's interesting about that is, you don't have to be Catholic. You don't have to be Christian. You don't even have to believe in God for us to get along. You just have to be able to respect that I do. And I need to be able to respect that you do or don't or have a different belief. And I think when we come from a place of mutual respect, we can really make a difference for people. And I talk about that in the latest issue of my newsletter is because Simon Sinek, where a lot of our why work is based on, he said, he famously said, when you tell people what you believe, you attract people who believe what you believe. There's a second part to it that says, but you also repel people who don't. But I think what's important is when you're putting out a bold message and you're saying, you know what, this is what I believe, make sure you're open to people who might want to learn more, right? Not everybody opposes, not everybody that doesn't believe what you believe opposes you. You might make them curious. And so it's an opportunity to bring them into the fold and not just say, oh, you don't believe what I believe, let me get rid of you.
Mm-hmm. Well, it reminds me just of a definition over the years that's been one of the best working definitions of sales I've heard. And sales is the transfer of belief in a lot of ways. And I think that's powerful. Dan, this congruence thing, being the same person that you are at home and at, in every realm of life, I think is so powerful. And one of the challenges I think that a lot of folks have is like, well, who am I? What am I all about? And this is why absolutely when you introduced us to the why operating system years ago now and began to unlock that for us, it was extremely helpful. And so I would love it if you could give a flyover of what this powerful tool does for people, because I know there's folks in our audience, some that have not heard of it, others, maybe looked at it a couple of years ago. It'd be great to be reminded, because to me, this was extremely helpful for me in being congruent, both, in all the different walks of life and all the different hats that I wear.
Yeah, no, it's amazing how incredibly effective that tool is. And a big shout out to Gary Sanchez and the Y Institute for developing that tool. That's how you guys and I met. Mm-hmm. I was actually the chief growth officer at the Y Institute. I introduced you to that tool. We've taken it, to a totally different level. Now it used to be just the why tool. So you would just find out what's your why, and your why could be contribute. It could be better way. It could be trust, or, there's all kinds of ways. There are 9 whys. Here's what I have found is when you know your why, and for those of you that haven't, go look it up. Simon Sinek's famous TED Talk, Discover Your Why. He wrote a book on it. What's your why? Or, But the important thing is this: when you know why you do what you do, when you know how you go about bringing your why to life, and when you know what you can be counted on to deliver, it makes life so much easier. So, and I'll use myself as an example. I'm a contributor at heart. So my why, I am driven by making a difference and helping others. That's where I start. How I do that, though, is different than a lot of people. I like to do that by challenging the status quo. So my how is to challenge the status quo. One of the things I've learned is that the how is very powerful. And what I mean by that is if your how is challenged, that's the first thing people might notice, because it's how you do everything. We know that about Larry. His how is clarify. It's how he does everything. He wants clarity. So that's the trait that we most commonly see, even though his why is contribute. We might not see that as easily as we see his clarify, because it's how he does everything. And my what is to make sense of things. I like to solve problems. It's almost inevitable that I would thrive in an environment where I get to help people by helping them, introducing them to something new and different and out of the box, and then helping them make sense of it. Right? Because how do you make sense of business? How do you make sense of social media? How do you make sense of leadership, which is what we focus on at Why Not Leadership, if you don't start with yourself? Chris Lowney, who's a great author, wrote a book called Heroic Leadership. He said all great leadership starts with self-awareness. And I just love the YOS as the first tool in self-awareness that I use with every single leader I work with. I worked with you guys, and it was the first thing I had you do. Before I even had a real important sales conversation with you, I wanted to know what drives Larry, what drives Darrell, and how do I talk to them in their language so that I have a greater opportunity to present things in the language that they understand, so that they're excited about it as much as I am, because talking to them in my language isn't going to sell as well to Darrell as talking to him in his language. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I want to use I'm going to interweave 2 of my favorite words is connect and relate. So if I'm speaking to all the leaders that are out there, I'm going to set salespeople aside for just a second. I'm just going to focus on leaders just for a moment. If you want to connect and relate better to your people, now I'm going to bring in salespeople. You got to understand what makes them tick, because part of leadership's effective communication. How are you effectively communicating to your salespeople if we're keeping this sales centric? Because y'all can't communicate the same way because they don't interpret things the same way.
Yes. It's the filter that everything goes through, right? And I think it's so important to make sure you understand what those filters are. I did something fun this week, Larry and Darrell. And if you guys were in Albuquerque, heck, you know what? Next year, you guys are coming to Albuquerque for this. I'm going to plan one, and I'm going to bring.
I don't even know the road to Albuquerque, Dominguez.
Hey, you know what? Just don't make a wrong turn at Albuquerque, Larry, and you'll be okay. You won't end up in a Bugs Bunny cartoon. But here's what I want you to do, Larry. I want you to grab Mrs. Levine, Darrell. I want you to grab Mrs. Amy and come on down to Albuquerque. We did this for the first time on Monday of this week. One of my clients said, Dan, I've so much enjoyed getting to know my team using the YOS tool. I wonder, actually, he didn't say I wonder. I know it would be helpful for me to know this about my wife. And so this guy is the chief technology officer at his company. And he said, Dan, and I have a few friends that I can invite. So for the sellers that are listening, you're going to laugh at this. I said, well, you know what? Let's put a little dinner together. We'll invite you and Jessica, his wife, and we'll invite those other people that you have. We'll put a price tag on it. I'll buy a nice dinner, and we'll have a great time getting to know each other from a why, how, and what perspective. What I forgot is that he was a chief technology officer, not a sales guy. So a couple of weeks later, after I'd already booked the restaurant and had everything ready, I said, so how many people are coming? He says, nobody wants to come. And I said, well, wait a minute. Let me, what are you doing? What are you telling him? He's like, well, he's an IT guy. He could code the heck out of it, and create something, but he's not going to convince anybody to come to a YOS conversation. So I said, don't worry, I'll fill the table. I reached out to a couple of other CEOs that I'm working with, and they had the same thing. They said, oh man, I'd love for my wife to know this, or my husband to know this. So we had a nice intimate dinner, 5 couples, and we went through some activities where we really dug into. We had some nice back and forth between the spouses. So we had one spouse who was a clarify, and her husband's a better way. And so you know how those two might not get along, because as a better way, he kind of tends to see things and want to move, right? It's better, let's go do it. And she's got questions that aren't getting answered. And then we sat in groups and groups of 2, first one-on-one with each other, but then in couples. So 2 couples got together and spoke, and 2 other couples got together and spoke with each other and talked about things like, think about a time when your why was really evident and you felt supported, right? And this is great for couples to talk about. But then let's talk about a time when when your spouse's why might have frustrated you. As a better way guy, Darrell, you know this. Well, how do you like it when somebody just asks you a lot of questions? You've got a great idea and you're ready to move, and you're pointing at that guy and they're saying, wait a minute, I've got questions.
Dominguez, let me just clarify something. I do it because I know it crawls underneath this freaking skin.
But it's so important to know, Darrell, and you know this as you guys work together and you've been great friends for a long time. You now know that Larry isn't asking questions because he doesn't trust you.
Of course. He's
asking questions because he is wired to ask questions and get clarity before he moves forward. And so if you know that ahead of time, you can what I call it is we're just going to give him grace. And we're going to answer his questions. And as a matter of fact, Darrell, you probably already know this. Before you bring any great idea, and you have lots of them, to Larry, you want to make sure you have all the possible questions he might ask answered. And then that makes that conversation go a lot easier, right? If you show up with all the information and answer all his questions, Larry's much more likely to nod his head yes. But if you show up and say, I have a great idea and we're launching it tomorrow, he's going to be like, whoa, I've got questions, and you haven't answered them.
Well, this is why I think it's so powerful for all of us to recognize as sales professionals,
right?
Is we're talking to people all day long that aren't like us. So if there are 9 whys, that means roughly 90% of the population is not like you. I'm sure there's more math behind it than that. And so if I am a better way guy, and by the way, I always have a better way. Even when I just had another better way, I have another better way after that. And I can sell based on vision. That's easy until I sit across the table from a simplify or clarify or right way guy that goes, that's a better way, but I'm not clear. That's complicated to me, or that's not the right way. And if I don't know that other people it's not just that they're task oriented or relational, it's a little bit more complicated than that. I'm going to sell, I'm going to hit brick walls. And if you look at the data, Dan, the data, 67%, give or take, in industry of stuff is stuck in the pipeline, stuff that reps said, I felt good about this deal, good enough to put it in the middle of the pipeline with a close date, and it's stuck. I wonder how much of it's stuck because we just don't understand the actual drive of the person that's sitting on the other side of the desk or the Zoom call.
Oh man, I love what you just brought up. Two things. One of the things I love to do when I do a team workshop where I'm taking a team through their YOS, I like to draw and I always get this wrong. I like to draw the number 9 on a piece of paper and I put it between two people. So Larry, I might put it between Larry and Darrell, and I'll ask Larry, what number do you see? And he'll say, that's a 9. Darrell Amy is sitting on the opposite side and says, no, that's a 6. Mm-hmm. And they're both looking at the exact same information, right? So it's a matter of perspective. We perceive things differently, just even based on what we are, but just on where we're sitting. Well, it's the same way with these filters. And that's why at the Y Institute, we develop what's called the Platinum Rule. It's about talking to people in their language. The Golden Rule says, treat people the way you would like to be treated. And Darrell Amy wants to be treated in a better way. But the people that you're talking about, those clarifiers, those right way people, those simplifiers, they're not looking for a better way. They're looking for simple, they're looking for clear, or they're looking for a process and a system that works. And if you come at them with an innovation that they're not ready for, now they can be ready if you're really clear for the clarify guy, or if you show the right way guy, the system and process that you're going to use to implement it, or the simplifier, you show them how simple it is. Look, it's 1, 2, 3. Don't present a 30 slide deck when 3 slides will do, right? Get to the point with those simplifiers. But again, it's about understanding those filters. The other example I like to use is contracts. Challenge versus right way. As a challenge person myself, I tend to look at contracts as suggestions. I tend to say, if it doesn't say we can't do it, we can do it, right? When you talk to a right way person, they process it differently. They say, if it doesn't say we can do it, we can't do it. And both of us are reading the exact same words. So understanding that my right way person is going to want to do it exactly by the book, whereas I'm going to want to try to push the envelope, doesn't mean we can't get along. And I had a workshop this year with the Archdiocese of Santa Fe. Believe it or not, their comptroller, so a right way guy to the max. Right, he keeps track of the books, and one of the things he talked about when we finished the workshop, and I said, "What name your biggest takeaway?" You know what his biggest takeaway was? He says, "I learned that I can get along with you." I said, "Tell me more." He says, "Well, you're a challenge guy. You don't follow rules. You tend to do things your own way." But it's not you and I that have a conflict. It's the fact you and rules have a different relationship than I do with rules, right? And that's the difference. When you learn that, hey, it's not you that I have a problem with, Darrell Amy, it's the way you look at rules. Because you look at rules as hard and fast. I look at them as flexible. And so once we understand that, then we can come together. Because guess what? In a business, there are going to be times, and you guys know this at Selling from the Heart, when it's time to, let's take a chance and fly by the seat of our pants and see what happens. And there's times when we have to say, hey, we have to be conservative and do it by the book because this is an important thing. So understanding who do you go to depending on what kind of decision you're facing is important too.
And I think all of this has to do with the ultimate, and the ultimate's building trust. And just in our time remaining, if you could speak to the sales leaders and salespeople about why this is so important. And I'm a big proponent of conversational competence, which I just don't think gets brought out to the surface enough. Why is what we're talking about over the last 20 some odd minutes so mission critical in a salesperson or a sales leader building trust, whether they're a sales leader to a team or salespeople to a client or potential client? Why is all this so important?
Yeah, well, you said it, Larry. Building trust, I think you can get a lot of one-time sales and have a great year, but repeat business and that referrals, all the things that keep a sales pipeline healthy and keep a sales organization working, have to do with building trust. And I think the important thing, and you don't have to become a YOS certified coach, but I think taking a sales team through the YOS process, having them learn the language, having them learn what words are people looking for. Because Larry and Darrell, you guys are smart. I know you guys could probably talk to somebody for a while, ask a few questions, and have an idea what's important to them, right? Probably have an idea which of the 9 whys they're driven by. And then make sure that going forward, and that's what all professional salespeople do. One of the things that we know, and as successful sales leaders, is it's not about the data you give, it's about the questions you ask. Asking the right questions and getting the right answers from the person that you're working with is going to help you modify your presentation, your style, your product, so that that client is served best. And really, that is the whole point of it. I think understanding the internal wiring of the clients that you're working with is critical to being able to deliver on a promise that you're going to make. And then for them to be able to feel like, wow, Larry really gets me. Because, your right way client, give them all the processes and systems. Let them know exactly how to implement what it is that you're selling. Your challenge person wants to know what's new, what's different, right? And you do this, right? Larry, how many times did you walk into a client's office? Now you're probably thinking that guy was probably a challenge. Hey, what's new? What's different, Larry? What's on the horizon? What's going to be new that's going to make me stand out from everybody else? Probably a better way or challenge guy. Versus when you walked in and they said, hey, don't change anything on me. I like it just the way it is. Don't bring your innovations. Everybody's working. We've got our costs down to the penny. So again, you deliver what they're looking for. So I think that's what makes it important. What do you think, Larry?
Oh boy, you don't want to know what I think. But no, I mean, I totally agree with this, because so often we're presenting or we're communicating in a way which we think comes across clear.
Right.
But in all actuality, it's not what we think is clear. It's what they think's clear. And I think the more you spend some time around this, the more you get a feel for this. Because I know in our conversations, I can sense this pretty quickly. Where am I going to go with this? How am I going to communicate with this person? Same with Darrell, because we've been around it enough to kind of spot it.
Yeah. What a great conversation. It's always fun talking with Dan Dominguez. Hey, Dan, I know a lot of our guests are asking the same question I am. How do I get more Dan in my life?
Well, man, there's so many kinds of ways, and we've got to get you guys back on the Lead Different podcast. We're on YouTube. Follow the podcast. We're really growing there. But you can find us at whynotleadership.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Dan Dominguez. I'm only one of about 300 in the U.S.
Yeah,
but I'm the only Dan Dominguez with Why Not Leadership. So Dan Dominguez, Why Not Leadership. Get a hold of us. Whynotleadership.com is our website. We love coming out and working with sales teams, executive teams. I had a fun time this year. I had one executive reach out to me, Darrell, and he said, you know what, Dan, we have our Wednesday leadership meetings. It's a family-run business. And he said, every Wednesday meeting ends up in a shouting match. And I bet the YOS could help us. And so that was a big challenge, but we took it on, and they're reporting great synergy, understanding, and better relationships in that group since we worked with them. So we're always up for a challenge. Prefer to work with teams that are already high performing and make them better. But you know what? We'll take a low performing team and help you understand them better and push the right buttons so that you get a team that's engaged, empowered, and energized at the end of the day.
Well, thank you, Dan, for challenging us today. You're a true contributor. We really appreciate you here at Selling from the Heart.
Thank you so much, Darrell. Thanks so much, Larry.
No, it's our pleasure.
I love it. Always fun to talk to Dan Dominguez. And, so I'm having this moment, Larry. So as you probably inferred from the conversation, my why is a better way. Larry, I start almost every conversation with a prospect or client going, hey, what's new and exciting?
Yeah.
That's like, oh my goodness, right? Just like right off the top. And I just telegraph unconsciously my why. But go back to the beginning and this thing about who are you at home? Who are you in your role at work and all the different roles you play? Congruence is really, really important. And if you don't know your why, go check that out and connect with Dan. This is to me, the discovery, the more I can discover about myself, the more I can know myself, the more things become a lot more clear. And there's so many upside benefits of that for all of our friends who are sales professionals and sales leaders.
Absolutely. I just want to just expand on this congruency, Darrell, before you wrap this up. This has been a good conversation with Dan Dominguez. Is I got to go to this congruency because once I really started to unpack my why, the congruency came out because I go, I'm just like this in my professional life. I'm a high contributor, right? I want to contribute to elevate the sales profession. In my personal life, I'm a high contributor. I love serving and giving back to the community. People, there's some validation behind this as a leader. Let's be a congruent leader and coach our salespeople to become congruent sales professionals by uncovering how to communicate to them.
That's right. Well, thank you for joining us this week. We've got great episodes coming up. So make sure to like and head over to YouTube and subscribe as well. Till next time, keep being genuine, keep being authentic, keep building trust, be congruent, and most of all,
sell from the heart.